Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Monday, September 2nd. It's Labor Day here in the United States, and today is day 332 since the attacks by Hamas on the south of Israel. I wanted to, as I've been doing the last 332 days, give an update on what's happened in the last 24 hours and over the weekend. In the West Bank, the death toll from Israel's large-scale raids in the occupied West Bank has risen to at least 30 as the incursions of the Israeli military and what many are calling actually a siege on the Jenin refugee camp has now entered into its sixth day. What began last Wednesday of the Israeli military seeking to what they've identified as incursions in an attempt to address militancy has caused the death of at least 30 people. Palestinians within the refugee camp now have limited access to food, water, power, or internet. That's according to Al Jazeera. 3 Israeli police officers were killed yesterday in the West Bank. This was when their vehicle came under fire. This was near the city of Hebron. According to Israeli officials, the military said that the suspect was killed by security forces. Hamas praised the attack but did not claim responsibility. A car bomb was disarmed at the entrance of a settlement called Adarot. There were no casualties reported. According to a regional settlement council, the Israeli police said the car contained dozens of kilograms of explosives. Hamas claimed responsibility for 2 attacks against Israelis in the West Bank that took place overnight into Saturday over the weekend. In Gaza, the health ministry reported that the death toll there is at least 40,786 Palestinians killed since October 7th, and at least 94,224 Palestinians wounded since the beginning of escalations after October 7th. An Israeli airstrike on an aid convoy in southern Gaza on Thursday killed 4 Palestinians, the U.S.-based aid group ANERA has said. I talked about this some last week. They're D.C.-based. We work closely with them. The Israeli military said it targeted a number of armed assailants. ANERA had coordinated with the Israeli military specifically about where it was going to be. That is a violation of international law for their convoy to have been attacked. The UN-led campaign to vaccinate children in Gaza began yesterday. Today was day 2 of 3 of regionally based humanitarian pauses. The rollout relies on a series of agreed localized pauses between fighting between Israel and Hamas. Though Palestinian health officials say a real ceasefire is needed in order for the campaign to be successful, the goal is to vaccinate 640,000 children, but in the last 2 days, the health ministry has indicated that 158,992 children after 2 days have been vaccinated. This is the first of 2 necessary vaccinations. The next one needs to be in a month in order for them to be fully vaccinated against polio. As I mentioned yesterday, the Israeli military recovered the bodies of 6 hostages in Gaza this weekend. The military said that they had been brutally murdered by Hamas, according to their communications. A spokesperson from the IDF said that the bodies were recovered on Saturday from a tunnel underneath Rafah. Israel's health ministry said later that forensic examinations showed that they had been shot at close range sometime between Thursday and Friday morning last week. One hostage was, actually, I think 2 hostages were U.S. Israeli citizens, but one of them was Hirsch Goldberg Poland. His parents spoke at the Democratic National Convention. They broke their silence yesterday, saying, "With broken hearts, the Goldberg Poland family has devastated to announce the death of their beloved son and brother Hirsch. The family thanks you for your love and support and asks for privacy at this time." The Israeli hostage Almog Sarusi, whose body was discovered on Saturday after he'd been killed by Hamas, was set to be released in this next first phase, if it could be agreed upon. That's been discussed in recent months, Haaretz discovered. Adi and Yael Alexander, the parents of another Israeli-American hostage, Eden Alexander, demanded that the New York Times op-ed that was just published, they demanded that Netanyahu uphold our shared Jewish values and prioritize the hostages whose lives remain in your hands, adding that it is not just the fear of losing our son that now keeps us up at night, it's the fact of his murder becoming the most probable outcome. We have no faith in Mr. Netanyahu's will to change that. At the funeral of the Israeli-American hostage Hirsch Goldberg Polin, President Isaac Herzog of Israel apologized on behalf of the state. He said that we failed to protect you in the terrible disaster of October 7th, and we failed to bring you home safely, adding that Israel's decision makers must do everything possible with determination and courage to save those who can be saved. Far-right National Security Minister in Israel, Ben-Gvir, told members of a forum for bereaved families that he is not ashamed to say that he is using his power in the government to prevent a reckless deal and to stop any negotiations altogether. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris convened a meeting at the White House alongside top national security advisors and the U.S. ceasefire negotiating team following the killing of Hirsch Goldberg Polin. The meeting focused on efforts to drive towards a deal that secures the release of remaining hostages. Following the meeting, Biden said that a deal is, quote, very close, end quote, but the Prime Minister Netanyahu is not doing enough to close it. I will just say we have heard many, many times that a deal is very close. I hope that this time is different. U.S., Qatar, and Egypt are preparing a final take it or leave it deal between Israel and Hamas. This effort was underway before the hostages' bodies were discovered over the weekend, but U.S. officials said that this discovery adds a new urgency. If Israel and Hamas do not agree to their final proposal, it could mark the end of American-led negotiations. Hostilities have continued between Hezbollah and Israel. There were no Israeli casualties in the last 24 hours, but there were 2 deaths in South Lebanon reported. In Israel, there was a nationwide labor strike that began today in the broadest expression of anti-government dissent since the war began. It comes after Israel's largest labor union yesterday called for action, pushing for a ceasefire and a hostage deal. Some 500,000 people protested across Israel, calling for the government to immediately accept a ceasefire deal. And Sky News reported, this is quite significant, that the UK has suspended some arms sales to Israel. The Foreign Secretary announced. David Lammy said the ban was not an arms embargo, but there is a clear risk that some UK arms could be used in violation of international law. It's been discussed that this could be a necessary precursor for the US to consider the possibility of withholding arms, even though there's been no indication from the Biden administration at this point that they're considering doing so. Demonstrators yesterday gathered outside of the DC residence of Israeli Ambassador Michael Herzog to voice anger over the deaths of the hostages recovered from Gaza over the weekend. That's an update over the last 24 hours. Please do not give up hope. Continue to pray, continue to give to organizations doing incredible work, responding to the needs in Gaza, to those who've lost loved ones. Continue in your advocacy for the sake of peace. May God go before us. Amen.